Hi, I'm David Hamburger, and in this lesson, we're going to look at how to use playing into the downbeat to create momentum in your fingerstyle blues soloing. So the downbeat, in this case, means the beginning of each measure, right? So if we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're playing a steady bass where the thumb is playing bass notes on those strong beats, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to think of playing into the downbeat as playing a lick that starts before you get to the start of a measure and resolves or lands on that downbeat. So when you're playing blues and the chords are going by, the thumb is your rhythm section. It's telling you what the chords are and what the pulse is. And you can play starting right on the downbeat. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Or you could start after the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So you could do on the downbeat, after the downbeat, or you could start playing before the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. And so playing before the downbeat has the advantage of creating a little bit of suspense and mystery because the listener will hear something that's going somewhere and then, okay, now it's landing, it's resolving, it's coming to rest right on the downbeat. So you've kind of led the listener's ear to the downbeat, which makes it feel like you are taking them through the chords rather than like you're reacting to the chords or even getting chased around by the chords yourself. So it's just a matter of thinking about the same notes that you might play on or after the downbeat and just planning ahead a little bit with certain kinds of phrasing, certain kinds of rhythmic structure to get you to have that sound. So if we just take these simple pentatonic notes, notes from the E minor pentatonic scale, this is the 5th and the flat 7 and the root and the flat 3rd, and start them on the and of 3 when we're counting in. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Now we have a phrase that leads into the downbeat or plays into the downbeat. And we could take those same notes and try them a bunch of different ways. That's a slightly busier rhythm, right? And 4 and 1. But it still starts on the and of 3 and still lands on the downbeat of the next measure. Right? Different possibilities. So I like to think of that as a short resolution. It's just a short phrase. It resolves onto the downbeat. You could also do a much longer resolution. You could start on the and of 1. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And again, you could make that more or less elaborate, just trying different combinations of notes. But it helps to start on the 5th or the flat 3rd and land at the end on the root. So because landing on the root gives you a sense of resolution, of arriving, on a note that really matches the chord. There are, of course, other ways you can do it, but it's just good to have some basic rules in place first, and you can experiment with those rules as you get more comfortable with the whole idea. So we could also use notes from the major pentatonic scale. Right, so here's the major 6th. That comes out of the E major pentatonic scale. And here's the 2nd of the major pentatonic scale, which you can combine like that with the flat 3rd to the 2nd, flat 7 to the 6 to the 5. You could even slide the flat 3rd up to the major 3rd. Or go from this flat 3rd. And so it's just a way of creating different sounds out of a really pretty compact amount of material. And again, you could create longer resolutions from the and of 1. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Right? And so one way to create a nice call and response is to play a short resolution into the downbeat of 1, the first measure, and then play a longer resolution into the downbeat of the third measure. So now we're going to go up to the A chord. Right? So that creates this sense of call and response. Here's a short phrase, and then we're going to answer that. And so this is a way that you can start to create some sense of logic and order in your solos without necessarily completely memorizing a bunch of licks, and also not feeling like you're just kind of completely winging it, right? If you've got a couple of rhythmic shapes that you're going to count on, then you can combine that with the different notes you know you can play and to come up with a vocabulary of different things you can do. And there's nothing wrong with working out a handful of licks with this rhythmic language. And then the improvising comes from sort of mixing and matching those ideas. But so we can do this on each line of the blues, right? We can have a short phrase, and then a longer phrase. So that works over the first 4 bars. Now we're coming into the A. And so we can do this in measures 5 and 6. And that takes care of the first 8 bars of the blues. So when I'm on the 4 chord, or when I'm heading to the 4 chord, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I'll play this major pentatonic sound, because that helps to kind of spell out the A chord, because the A has this note, C sharp, in it. So as a way to sort of signal ahead where you're going, which is the whole idea here. If you're on E, that's cool to use the flat 7. But then if I'm on my way to the A chord, or if I'm in the A chord, right, on measure 2, notice how these notes all kind of help to spell out the sound of A7. I've picked notes from the 2 pentatonic scales I have available to kind of help spell out the chord that I'm on, and then I resolve back to an E. Now when I'm going to measure 5, to anticipate that chord, I will use the C sharp again, and then land this time on the root of A. Again, resolving, like getting to a big fat A note when the rhythm section, the thumb, is going to A. And then playing out of the A chord back to the E. Coming back to an E on top. Now when I get to the B chord, you don't have to stop right on the downbeat. You can do a thing that I like to think of as a delayed resolution, right? So we're coming into the B chord, and we land on notes, this note from the major pentatonic scale in E, because it helps to spell out a B chord, right? Because if we want to get to the root of B, it's here on the open 2nd string. But maybe we'll get there in a kind of delayed way, like just goof around on this sound here, as a way to kind of, yeah, we're getting there eventually, right? So we play this lick. And so delayed resolution in the sense that we don't get to the root of the B until 1, 2, 3, and, right? Until the and of 3 of measure 9, the beginning of the turnaround, right? So, and then we can resolve from A right? So we've got a short resolution, we've got a delayed, we've got a long resolution, and we've got a delayed resolution so far. So short resolution, long resolution, and delayed resolution. And you could do delayed resolutions on the 1 and the 4 chord too. We're just going to put it on the 5 chord right now as kind of a mnemonic device. Go, oh, when we get to the 5, we'll do delayed resolution. It's a way to think about it. Now, there's one more kind of resolution we could add, and this will sound really familiar. You know, you don't always end up stopping at the end of the, you know, the beginning of the 3rd bar. There's all this space here. It kind of wants to be filled as a kind of answer to the answer, right? You've got this short resolution, long resolution. Together they make a kind of call and response statement. But then there's all this space at the end of the line. And that sort of wants its own little resolution, its own kind of response to the call and response. So this little arpeggiated figure here is kind of a lick and kind of a chord thing. And because it comes as kind of a, you answer, you know, you played the call and response already, and it's kind of an echo of that answer. It's like a secondary answer. I think of it as the echo resolution. Kind of echoes what you've already had. So it kind of plays the role of sort of answering the answer and taking up that space in a colorful way. So when we do the second line, we could do an even more elaborate echo resolution. So one that kind of develops the first idea that we had. So there's that idea, and then we can take that. And so now I'm kind of like, on the grand scheme of things, we have a little bit of development from one echo resolution to the next, so that the second line sounds a little different and a little more colorful than the first line. And then, here's our delayed resolution. We could have a different and even more elaborate echo resolution at the end. So this response that takes us back into the B7 chord. So that gives us a way to construct a solo over the whole form of the tune in a way that's kind of got some logic to it, everything's sort of connected, but you could start improvising with any kind of short phrase, and this would give you a way to develop it almost on the fly. You'd have some tools to kind of just be feeling like, well, if I did this, what could I do with that? Oh. Right, because we're taking this short phrase and then we're turning it into a longer phrase that's going to land on our root, right? Now there, I didn't actually address the shape of the A7 chord. I just played an E blues lick over the A chord, which is also fair game. Blues licks sound good over the 4 chord when the 4 chord is headed back to 1. They just have a sense of resolution because all those blues notes create a sense of tension that resolves when you get where you're going. So you could take a new phrase and then play a longer version of it, play some kind of echo. And it doesn't have to be single notes. It could be a little chord phrase, right? A little double stop. 2nd fret on the 3rd and 2nd string, 4th and 3rd fret on the 3rd and 2nd string. So here's our idea taken through. Maybe actually, instead of letting that flat 3rd hang out like that, maybe we want to hammer onto the major 3rd from the major pentatonic scale to kind of resolve it. And then double stops. Now maybe acknowledge the A chord with the C sharp here. delayed resolution on B. Right, because we could have landed right on the root, but if we land on the root and keep going, right? So you can create these solos from a very small amount of information, and you'll always feel like you're leading into the next thing because you're always playing a short resolution or a long resolution or a resolution that gets delayed, or then playing an echo response to all of that. So that's a way to take short, simple ideas, but by playing into the downbeat, give your solo a sense of momentum while you're giving it a sense of kind of logical construction as well. So you don't feel like you're just kind of having to make up everything from scratch, just out of thin air. So if you'd like to learn more about improvisation and building your repertoire, you can go to my website, fretboardconfidential.com, and I'll see you next time.